Matthew, the 18th chapter, verses 15 to 20. If another member of the church sins against you and points out the fault, then when the two of you are alone, if the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am among them. The gospel of our Lord. So, our text this morning is about what it means to be community and what it means to be church. And as I was thinking about this text, I got to thinking about a man who was in my internship congregation and how he and I disagreed about literally everything. I mean, I feel really bad about this because we were waiting for his wife to come back from some tests at the hospital. I'm sitting with him. I'm supposed to be comforting him. And every conversation I bring up, we disagree on. I say, hey, I like that candidate. He says, no, I like this one. I say, hey, I like this sports team. He says, no, I like that one. I say, I'm not a fan of this. He says, well, I love it. I say, well, I'm part Scottish. He says, well, I'm Irish. Thank you to the person who laughed at that. My mother would be pleased. You know, it blew my mind. I'm like, and I actually said it. I'm like, I am so sorry. I don't know what to talk to you about. He says, well, that's okay. I love you anyway. And that's when I learned a very important thing about church. And I learned this lesson that church is not a group of people who are like-minded. Church is not a group of people who agree on everything. If that's your church, then, you know, you're not growing, you're not challenging, you're not engaging. Because church is not a group of people who agree on something. Those are clubs. Those are societies. Those are other things that you can join and be part of. But church is something different because church is a group of redeemed sinners. Church is a group of people who know they have been saved and are loved by God and want to share that love with other people. And so when I think about what it means to be church, when I read this passage, when I read our Romans passage, I hear a calling. I hear something that says we are called to be in community together, not because we're going to get it right and tell everybody else how to do it, but because we know we've been loved and we want to share that love. Let me take a step back. The first thing I learned about being a pastor is that I will make mistakes. All right? I will make wonderful, horrible, messy, gross mistakes. You will step into awkwardness. You will let somebody down. You're going to make the mistake. That's what our text tells us today. Church is a group of people that sometimes face conflict. We have it right here in Matthew. The church is messy. The church is a group of people who care about lots of things. And when people care and come together, of course there's conflict. Did you catch that part about a group of redeemed sinners? Of course we're not perfect. Because we make those mistakes. But we've been saved. And when we come together, we can push each other and we can challenge each other and we can grow together. We don't just walk away from the relationship just because something doesn't go our way. We continue to try and make it better. We continue to invest our time, our energy, because something is happening here. Something beautiful and amazing and rich. And this is not, this is a Rally Sunday survey, so there is a little bit of a rallying cry to be involved in the church, but please don't hear this as, oh yeah, I gotta get involved, I gotta volunteer and stuff like that. No. What this is really about is that you belong. You belong to this community. And your voice matters here. And it doesn't have to be the same voice as me or as Pastor Dave or as our council president or as even the person sitting next to you, because your unique, wonderful voice is part of what makes the church the church. When we separate and break down into groups of people that only think and act like us, we lose that ability to be God's people. And that's why we're together. That's why we welcome everyone. That's why we open our doors, and when we welcome people, we say, I hope you change us. I hope you help us grow. I hope you make us better. Now, obviously, being part of that means that people are going to butt heads. So what do you do when that happens? Well, Matthew has some words of wisdom. Matthew says, you talk to the person. First thing you do is you talk to the person. Notice, to the person. That's a big part of this. Communication matters, and it matters in the church. Second thing, if that doesn't work, well, you get a couple other people from the... Sorry. I told you the church wasn't perfect. Second thing you do is you get a couple other people together and you talk to the people as a group and you say, hey, what gives? We want to talk to you. We want to know. We want to think. Let's communicate here. And if that doesn't work, then you get the whole church in on the act. And you say, come on, talk to us, buddy. We want to know what's going on. And finally, if that doesn't work, you treat such a person as a Gentile and a tax collector. And that may sound like a bad thing, but who did Jesus eat with? Who did Jesus minister to? Who did Jesus go out of his way to befriend and heal and welcome? Tax collectors, Gentiles, sinners, those redeemed, imperfect people. When all else fails, we are called not to turn our backs and say, well, sorry, looks like we lost that. We are called to love. Deeply and radically, the kind of love that fulfills the law, the kind of love that we read about in Romans, that makes everything else fade away. The kind of love that I got to experience when a man I was supposed to be comforting turned to me and said, you're still my sister. I still love you. We don't have to agree to be community. In fact, sometimes it's better if we don't. I'm not going to lie to you and say that St. Andrew's or any church has it all figured out. The grass can always look greener somewhere else. And there are always options and opportunities out there. There's a lot of reasons and a lot of people and voices out there that say the church is something that's not worth being a part of anymore. But the reality is you can't stop church. Because where two or three are gathered, where two or three are gathered in God's name, God is there. And as long as people come together to experience and share that love, church happens. It happens in fields and in sanctuaries. It happens on riverbanks where we'll be cleaning up litter today. It happens in schools where it's not supposed to. It happens in all kinds of amazing, it happens in Walmart, in the grocery aisle. It happens in hospitals and hospice centers. It happens at Community Connect. Everywhere people come together, God can be there. And we come together as this community of faith on Sunday mornings to remember that, to celebrate it, to remember that we are God's church, doing God's work with our hands, called to love, share, inspire, and reach out in ways we may not even realize yet. I hope that you feel that calling to be part of this messy, wonderful, beautiful thing that is the church. I hope it stirs you up to share God's love. And I hope you know that without you, we're not the church. Because it can't just be me. It can't just be Pastor Dave. It needs people gathered together. Because that's where God truly is. In the relationship, in the community, when we come together. And as long as there are groups of people out there that celebrate that they are saved and beloved of God, church will happen. And I, for one, am really proud of that. Thank you for being the church. Amen.